This is Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review, and I'm looking at Western Conference NHL futures for the upcoming NHL hockey season, which begins on October the 12th. It's only a few weeks away. We're going to look at the Pacific and the Central Division in the Western Conference. We're going to see which teams offer up value from a futures perspective. Let's start by looking at the Central Division, the best division in hockey as far as I'm concerned. It was last year. I expect it to be the most competitive division in the NHL once again this season. Look at the teams. I mean, Chicago Blackhawks, Dallas Stars, Minnesota Wild, Nashville Predators, St. Louis Blues. All of those teams made the playoffs last year. All of them from the Central Division. The only two teams to miss the playoffs in the Central Division last year were Colorado and Winnipeg. So you feel bad for them. It's going to be obviously tough sledding for them to try to knock out one of these teams from the postseason. Obviously when you look at it, Chicago plus 220. Same with the Dallas Stars plus 220. St. Louis plus 261. Nashville plus 465. Minnesota plus 1870. And I'm going to mention in a minute why that one's a little bit surprising to me. Winnipeg plus 1967, Colorado plus 4251. So definitely a division with some big disparity between the top teams and the bottom teams in this Central Division. Chicago and Dallas are going to be there. All right, very good chance they win the division. If you want to look at Chicago, if you want to look at Dallas, in terms of teams to win this division with a futures bet, I wouldn't talk you out of it. These are going to be two tremendous teams. I really think Dallas is finally ready to take that next step defensively. We know they can score goals. I think they're going to be a little bit more better equipped to keep the puck out of their own net, which has always been the concern with the Dallas Stars in years past. So Chicago, Dallas, going to be there as far as I'm concerned. St. Louis could still be there. Some concerns, though, with, again, Ken Hitchcock will leave in his last season there. Some changes, some tweaks with the personnel with that team. Will they be as good? Nashville, their concern really is depth. They've got very good top six forwards. But again, PK Subban should help them offensively along the blue line. But again, there's going to be some concerns with their goaltending too. Pekka Rinne, a guy that we continue to harp on, or at least I harped on him a lot last year, for a guy that didn't really play well for most of that season, really struggled, played better in the playoffs. In fact, he did have some good games for them, but that goaltending still a little bit of a concern what we get from Pekka Rinne here with this Nashville team. Minnesota, to me, at that plus 1870 price, worth a look as far as I'm concerned in terms of winning the Central Division, just because of the coach. Okay, Bruce Boudreau. Bruce Boudreau, in 6 seasons where he's been the head coach of an NHL team for a full 82-game season, in 6 seasons, in all 6 of those seasons, his team has won the division. All right, his team has won the division, whether it was Washington, whether it was Anaheim. There was that one year when he took over Anaheim. I believe it was the 2012-2013 season from Randy Carlyle. He got fired early on that season. Bruce Boudreau took over. Anaheim was already way out of it. They didn't make the playoffs that year. I wouldn't hold that against him. I'm talking about Bruce Boudreau coaching a team for a full 82-game season. He's done that 6 times with Washington and Anaheim. And all 6 times, his teams won the division. Including in the first year he was the head coach of Washington. First full year of with Washington, with the Capitals as their head coach. First full year, first full 82-game season with Anaheim as their head coach. Won the division both times. He could do it again with Minnesota. I think he's got a harder road to do it, to be honest, because you got to get through Chicago, you got to get through Dallas. 2 teams I still think are a little bit more deeper teams, with, I think, a little bit more veteran, trustworthy goaltending, specifically Chicago, than, say, what Minnesota has. Devin Dubnyk's played well. Kemper's capable, but, I think the goaltending situation's still a little murky there. But the fact of the matter is, Bruce Boudreau, say what you want about how miserable he's been in the playoffs, and he has. In terms of getting there, in terms of winning divisions, in terms of regular season success, there's nobody better. There's very few coaches in the NHL better than Bruce Boudreau. So for that reason, I think there's value with Minnesota to win the division. I think it's going to be tough to overcome Chicago, tough to overcome Dallas. You can never count Nashville or St. Louis out. They're going to be factors as well. But I think Minnesota offers up great value at that plus 1870 price, almost 19 to 1 to win the Central Division, just based on the fact Bruce Boudreau's won division titles everywhere he's gone. Washington, Anaheim, and he's done it a lot. So who knows? Maybe he can do it again here with the Minnesota Wild in his first season behind the bench in St. Paul. Minneapolis, St. Paul, I should say. So we'll see how he does there. Winnipeg Jets, to me, I'm not going to say they're going to win the division, but I think the Winnipeg Jets are going to be competing for the playoffs this year. Patrick Laine is going to do a lot for that offense. They're going to be able to score more goals this year. Mark Scheifele had a breakout season last year. I think he's going to continue to improve on this Winnipeg team. It's going to come down to what they get from their goaltending situation. They've got guys that have been good at times and guys that have not been good at times, and Andre Pavlik, Connor Hellebuck, Michael Hutchinson. I think Hellebuck's got the most upside, but being able to do it consistently is the question mark. I think from a betting perspective, when we get into the season, there's going to be some money to be made with the Winnipeg Jets. Paul Maurice has been there now long enough. They're very well aware of what to expect with this team from a system perspective. I wouldn't look at Winnipeg from a future standpoint in the Central, but I think from a betting perspective, Winnipeg might have some opportunities to make some money with this team early on in the campaign, especially if they get off to a good start. But from the futures perspective, Chicago, Dallas, if you want to take either of those two teams to win the division, can't fault you. But I think Minnesota offers up the greatest bang for your buck in terms of a futures bet to win that division. The Pacific Division now in the Western Conference. This is where we could see some, not a changing of the guard, but for years it's been Anaheim, LA, San Jose, that triumvirate of California teams just dominating this division. I think there's question marks with all of them. I think with LA, there's question marks. Jonathan Quick especially. Jonathan Quick didn't have a good season by his standards last year. I didn't think he played all that particularly well just now in the World Cup for the United States either. So goaltending with Jonathan Quick to get back to the level that we were used to seeing him at, all of a sudden a bit of a question mark with LA. San Jose, give him credit. I think San Jose is going to be good again this year, but you got to the Stanley Cup final. You got so close to finally winning a cup there. Do you maybe suffer a letdown, so to speak, for the Sharks? They got the talent there to be just as good this year, but do they have that same, focus, I guess you could say, or are they still a little bit off after just getting so close to winning a Stanley Cup last year and coming up just short, losing to Pittsburgh in the Stanley Cup final? And Anaheim is actually the favorite to win this division, plus 143. I didn't like the way they ended their season last year, that's for sure. I didn't like the fact that Randy Carlyle brought back to be the head coach of this team here with the Anaheim Ducks after Bruce Boudreau replaced him initially here in Anaheim. I don't know. I mean, Randy Carlyle, when he coached Anaheim to a Stanley Cup back in 2007, he had Getzlaf and Perry in his prime. He had, J.S. Giguère was just a phenomenal goaltender back then. He had Pronger and Scott Niedermayer on his blue line. I don't see that same kind of talent. And I don't see Getzlaf and Perry anymore quite at the pinnacle. If anything, they may take steps downward and decline just ever so slightly now at this stage of their career. So I think it's going to be tough for Anaheim, to be honest with you, to be as good as they've been the last couple of years, especially in terms of being able to win this division. Vancouver, forget it. I mean, they I think are going to be the worst team in the NHL this year. I really believe that. That Canucks team is just so much rebuilding to do. Mike Gillis, the old GM, ran that team right into the ground, right into the ditch, and they're still trying to basically get out from the grave that he put them in when he was the GM years and years ago. That team's going to be absolutely miserable. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. I'm not going to touch Anaheim, LA, or San Jose in terms of futures bets to win this division. I think it's priced pretty accurately there. But Calgary and Edmonton, I think either one of these teams could honestly threaten to win the division. I'm serious. I mean, I think Calgary, a bad year last year after they had that resurgence in the year before that. I think they're going to be a team that's going to be better this upcoming season. Obviously, new coach as well. And Edmonton to me as well in that 10 to 1, 11 to 1 price range. I really think the Oilers have a chance to make the playoffs this year, and all they have to do is make the playoffs. If they can get in anything can happen. With that skill, that speed they have, with what I think now is a capable goaltender now in Cam Talbot, who saved the Oilers' bacon in a lot of games last year when they were still getting heavily outshot. You can say what you want about them losing Taylor Hall. I think Adam Larsson is a piece on that blue line that the Oilers desperately needed. So for that reason, decent trade for them. They've already got a overload of forwards. McDavid, Eberle. They get Milan Lucic to give them some toughness. And again, if Milan Lucic can still show some offensive touch, that's going to be a good pickup. I think RNH, the Nuge, as I like to call him, Ryan Nugent Hopkins, I think he's going to have his best season yet. What can this malcontent Nail Yakupov do? That's going to be a big question. He's definitely had some issues on and off the ice with this Edmonton team. But again, I think their blue line is finally a little bit better. Mark Fane, Darnell Nurse, I think is going to have a very good year, breakout year on that blue line. Adam Larsson's a big get for the Edmonton Oilers. Sekera's solid. You still have questions about Clefbaum and Davidson on that blue line, but this is still a better blue line than they've had at any point the last few years here with this Edmonton team. I think from a bang for your buck, let's go for some value in terms of futures to win the Pacific Division. I'd look toward Calgary or Edmonton before I'd look toward the chalk, to be honest with you. And I'm talking about Anaheim, LA, or San Jose. I would honestly look at taking a flyer with a Calgary or an Edmonton in that 10, 11 to 1 price range to win the Pacific Division, because I really think it's a more wide open division than the odds makers have it right now. So let's see what happens. But I think those two Alberta teams, one, maybe both of them, have the chance to surprise this upcoming season. All right, that will wrap up my look at Western Conference NHL futures for the upcoming season. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Make sure you are checking out sportsbookreview.com. Make sure you are looking for the best sportsbooks list on the website. If you're new to betting NHL hockey and you need a sportsbook, go to sportsbookreview.com/best-sportsbooks. You're going to have a list of every reputable sportsbook that you could bet at. Bet365, Pinnacle, Heritage, Bet Online, Bookmaker, all kinds of great sports books there for you to choose from. And as well, we have a portion of the website that lists online sportsbook bonuses as well. Definitely something you want to be looking at if you're looking for a new sportsbook for the NHL hockey season, as well as which sportsbooks offer great bonuses. All of that key important information to ensure that you're putting yourself in the best position to win is all available at sportsbookreview.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SPR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.